Yo, GD here, Limitless, and as you can see, we are back on F1 2021 as always. And in today's video, we are back with some online lobbies, which I actually haven't done for quite a considerable time. So this was done on PC. This was pretty much mostly members, so if you'd like to join my online lobbies and get a guaranteed seat, make sure you click that join button and become part of my Discord, so you will get the priority invites and also access to my updated setups, also a discount on one-to-one coaching. But in today's video, I really want to discuss why people aren't winning races and how you can increase your chance of becoming better on F1 2021 and start to actually win races online, because at the end of the day, that's what everyone is really striving to achieve. But I feel most people don't really have the understanding of what approach is really required in order to achieve that. So we're going to be showcasing 3 different races here today, and I'll be going over actually 5 points that I think are very important in to try and help people achieve that goal. This is something I say in my one-to-one coaching sessions quite a lot, and I think a lot of people just don't even really think of these things that much. And the first thing I'm going to mention is not having enough patience, and you actually saw an element of that there, where I could have gone down the inside of that driver, but I think it was quite clear. And you can see this guy clearly has no patience whatsoever himself. But I think people are always in so much of a rush to win the race on that one. And I know we see this online all the time in lobbies such as this, where people are going crazy. And yes, I know it's not quite a league race, not on the same level in terms of seriousness, and league racing in general is usually a lot cleaner, but there is no surprise why a lot of drivers can do a last to first all the time in online lobbies. And it's not because they're just immune to be taken out or anything at all. It's because they know when to push, they know when to attack, and they know when to go for those opportunities. And quite a lot of the time, it really is just holding yourself back in terms of actually being aggressive. And on the flip side, there are times where you do need to be decisive and aggressive, but especially in the early parts of races, quite often you don't need to be making the moves that you see other people trying to make as well. So I think having patience, kind of not taking your time, but just assessing the situation up ahead of you. If you see 2 people going 3 wide, then you know that those drivers are probably not going to be opening the door for you quite so easily. So really take the opportunity when it's a clear-cut overtake. So when it's a DRS overtake and the guy you're overtaking doesn't have the DRS, or when you get a really good momentum on the driver up ahead, when the red light is flashing, just assessing the situation up ahead of you and ask yourself, is there really any benefit to wasting all my ERS and going for this overtake on lap 1 of the race when it's going to be a bit of a 50-50? Those are the kind of situations you really do need to ask yourself. And this obviously comes with experience as well. The more online races you do, the better you get at kind of assessing this. But I would say number 1 thing is to have the patience, and don't let the frustration get the better of you. This is something I say when it comes to time trial, when you're trying to set the fastest lap possible. I always recommend people to not restart, and in the case of online, to not leave the lobby, to not rage quit, even if you have been blown up at turn 1, which you will see in a couple of races time. If you're able to come back from that and actually get a good result and show the pace, it really does give you the confidence. So please, please, please have the patience, because I think it's a very underrated thing indeed. Number two that I see from people, and again, this is something I have with people I've coached on many occasions. I normally ask them, how often do you play online? And the answer is, I just do time trial, or I just focus on the qualifying. And I think that's a big problem. When people are trying to improve in their consistency, they're not playing the game mode that actually gives them the points for the race, especially for league races. I think playing online, even if you're going against people who are a bit of a nightmare, kind of relating to my first point, you get used to dealing with drivers who are a bit unpredictable, who are very, very aggressive. You start to realize when to back off, when to go for the overtake, and your racecraft just improves drastically. And I think your mentality just improves for the races, because believe it or not, and as cheesy as it sounds, it's a lot of people have the speed and have the talent, but they just aren't willing to really be disciplined or to have that patience as well. And like here, a bit frustrating. I can see this guy's got a red light flashing now, and I know that I really need to overtake this guy going down the straight. So I could have overtaken him going into that right-hander, the penultimate right-hander, but again, was just assessing the situation. I know he's going to be slow in a straight line as well, so we're going to go side by side, and I was looking at doing this move a good 2 laps out as well. So coming through into here, managed to get 2 in 1, and we're going to pick up the DRS on the exit as well. So that was very, very nice, and you can see these guys are not playing too nice. But yeah, point number 2, if you want to be more consistent in your races and to be more competitive in league racing especially, then I think you need to try and play in line as much as possible. And we actually see this even in the world of F1 esports. Who's the best driver in the game? It's Jarno Opmeer, and he races online all the time. And I think there's some other drivers who I won't name who are almost equally as fast, but they never do league racing, they never race online. And in those decisive moments, they maybe lack a little bit of that racecraft and consistency, because they're not faced with unknown scenarios too often like you get when you race online. You kind of get used to being out of your comfort zone rather than just practicing in a private lobby or something like that. So yeah, being patient and playing online, definitely the first 2 things. I think point number 3 is again something I see quite often with people, and even in the world of F1 esports, where everyone is just an absolute alien, especially over the 1 lap pace, is that they focus too much on their 1 lap speed, whether that's time trial or qualifying. And I've had this for many, many years when I've been practicing for league races with people who I would say are faster than me over 1 lap. Is we just go into a qualifying session, and what I usually like to do is I like to do at least 5 laps in the race straight afterwards, or maybe even 10 laps, just to get used to the tyres. But quite often when I practice with people and I'm not the host of a lobby, straight away we do the qualifying, go into the race, and then everyone just retires and goes straight back to the qualifying, which, yeah, I know 1 lap pace is important, especially because it determines the grid, and for very, very competitive races such as esports, it really is quite crucial. But for most non-aliens, I think they don't have the right balance between focusing on their pure 1 lap speed and also trying to develop their consistency in the race. And I think I've probably done the opposite a bit too much in the past, where sometimes I just used to pretty much only focus on the race, do the first 10 laps of the race. And when I do my lobbies online, I quite often do 25% races, because I feel that's a good amount of laps to really generate that consistency. It forces me to be consistent. It forces me not to get a penalty. I have to push quite hard, whereas like a 3 lap race or 5 lap race, you can sometimes get away with just having the pace and having 1 or 2 inconsistent laps. But in a 25% race and a 50% race, you certainly cannot get away with that, because you'll either get a penalty or you're just going to make too many mistakes. And yeah, but I think the other main point with just focusing 2 lap and 1 lap pace is that in a TT and a qualifying, the goal is to push 100% all the time. To be the fastest over a lap, you've got to give it absolutely everything. No, don't leave any stone unturned. Whereas online, when you're going to the race, if you drive like that all the time, then you might have some fast laps, but when you make a mistake, it's going to be a big mistake, and the room for error is just so much bigger. Whereas with myself, I kind of had the mentality where I'm always leaving a little bit of room for error. Not the case where I'm just like lifting on the straight for fun, but I always push it around 95% and not leaving half a second in the tank, but making sure I'm committed into the corners, but it's not going to be enough where I'm going to run wide, where I'm going to make a big error, and where I'm going to get damage or anything such as that. I always drive kind of like within myself. And I think a lot of people who just focus on time trial, who are very good at time trial and can do some amazing laps in terms of 1 lap pace, they don't know how to kind of switch modes between the qualifying and the race, and they drive the same. And it can work out sometimes, but when you have the tyre wear and things such as that, it's very easy to push over the limit. And that kind of leads me to my second point, but the fourth point is that with this, I think a lot of drivers don't really understand how to manage the car. And I think through point number 3 of just focusing on 1 lap pace, they're just pushing 100% all the time. They don't really factor in tyre temperatures. They don't really factor in tyre wear or ERS management. And when you get to tracks such as Hungary, which we are going to do next, which will be a really good example, if you're just driving flat out all the time, it's not going to work. You do have to a degree, drive within your limits and manage the car. So it's about being the fastest over the course of 20 to 30 laps, not a 1 or 2, 3 separate laps. And it's all about getting the highest average lap time, not the absolute fastest lap time. Because there's been so many leagues that I've won races in, or won the championship, and I have not been the fastest driver. Definitely, most of the time, I haven't been the fastest driver. I had probably the least amount of poles against my championship rivals, but it's been because I've known how to use the battery. I know when to push. I know when to take a risk with the track limits, whereas other people are just taking the risks with the track limits all the time, trying to stretch every bit of life out the tyres, and it usually results in them overdriving, and then they just make too many mistakes. And when they do need to start driving a bit more cautiously because they already have 2 warnings or something like that, then it's a new territory for them. And I think it's the reason quite often that they become inconsistent in the race, because you see so many people who are so fast over a lap, but then there's only a few people, and even in esports, we can discuss it here, there's only a few selected amount of drivers who can do both, and there's a reason why those drivers are always consistently at the top as well. But you can see here, coming on to the last lap, I can see this guy's red light was flashing, so I didn't try and push on the straight. Go for a move here to go around the outside, and I don't think he's going to be paying too kindly. He tries to push, gives me absolutely zero room, but luckily we get the traction and we get the ERS. Let's see if he's going to let his patience get the better of him, and you can see tries to dive down my inside, but yeah, that's something called karma. So yeah, managed to do this race pretty nicely, and I've worked quite a lot on Portsmouth recently, where I think I did a video last week where I said how bad the track was. I've managed to really put in a lot of time, especially with a guy called Razak Gaming. Shout out to him. Been doing a lot of practice of him around this track, and we've certainly helped each other improve. And again, it goes back to my first point. You just got to have the patience. As we're going across the line here, taking the W, and yeah, that's what happens when you try and play a little bit though. But now we're going to move on to our final race at Hungary, and this is a race that was quite a difficult one, but again, I think really will highlight or illustrate the points that I've been making before and why races such as this are actually so important for your development. So trying to get a good start here. We've got Mr. Moonfall in the Red Bull directly in front of us, and quite typically in a 5-lap lobby, this is what happens. So going into this turn 1, yeah, this is pretty much what happens to 90% of people. And in this scenario, when you've gone back to P15, most people are just not going to want to continue. So they'll probably go just leave the race. And I encourage you, if you're watching this video, to not do that. To try and stick in and see what you can achieve. Because the more you do it, the better you're going to become in terms of your mentality as well. So we're going to try and get back through this field here. A few people have gotten off and almost losing the car. The Red Bull was trying to go down my inside there. And yeah, I don't know who that was who hit me. I think it might have been the Red Bull. But we have now gone back to P14 once again. So again, my tyres are all over the place, almost smashing into AlphaTauri. And you're about to see what my tyre temperatures are. Around Hungary, they're already bad enough, but we got 110 degrees. Not quite minus 200 degrees. That was a lot worse, but still not in a particularly good place. So, see, Moonfall across the line in first place, and we're in P13. So let's see what we can do. So I'm going to have the patience. I've done this so many times online where I've been taken out. So many races. You'll often get taken out, and yeah, it's very, very easy to just throw in the towel. But if you can actually come back and surprise yourself, and you can see another guy behind me just trying to take me out. A lot of people just don't like to be overtaken, it seems, online. But see, again, not letting the frustration get the better of me. And of course, it helps when you do have pace and you have driven on the game for a long time. But I can promise you, when I first started playing F1 games, it took me a long time to get anywhere near a decent level. I'd say I was pretty much just an average player when I first started. I used to always get frustrated. I used to always just rage quit races, and I just never improved at all. But doing races such as this, where I get spun out 2 or 3 times in the first few laps, and you feel, what's the point? I think the point is, if you sticking in there, showing that you have the pace, showing that you can overtake people, come back, it really strengthens you mentally. And again, I know that's probably quite a cheesy thing to say, but this is honestly what has worked for me, is by just persisting and sticking in there and being able to come back from quite bad races where I've just been knocked down to last and then come back to a good result. Really just fuels the confidence. And this is what you got to do. If something goes wrong in the league race, you know, and you've just rage quit all the time when it's happened online and you haven't really practiced the race at all, then that's going to be a completely new scenario for you. So if you're used to being able to just pick yourself up and persist no matter what happens, then you're just going to be much more mentally tougher, and you're going to feel better about yourself when you're driving. Definitely going to have a lot more confidence. And you can see, we managed to cool down our tyre temperatures, and we've done a purple middle sector. So this guy is going to let me pass, which is a bit annoying because I wanted to get the DRS. And coming across the line, what are we going to do here? It's going to be a 16.2, which is the fastest lap of the race. So now, in my mind, I'm thinking about trying to catch this ESPIN 20 by the next lap to get the DRS. But my final point as well, which is kind of crosses over with the others, is a lot of people just don't drive within their limits. They are just always trying to push all the time. They don't know when they need to be disciplined. So not overusing the battery, not trying to use every single inch of the track. I think people, once they can realize that they need to tone it down at certain moments and be aggressive in others, then the much better you will be at managing a race to your desire online. And you can see here now, the guy ahead of me is actually fairly fast himself, so I don't think we're going to get within his DRS zone, but we've managed to save some for the last lap just to see how fast we can go. And you can see we went back to around P15, P14, and now we are back up into P4. So Moonfall does a 16.2, we did a 16.1, but now we're going to push on this final lap of the race and coming through into this turn one, actually going a little bit deep, not going to get the benefit of DRS on this lap. And I can see the guy up ahead of me, his red light was flashing slightly, so there might be an opportunity to get him into this final sector. But honestly, consider what happened in the first lap. I just feel so much better about this race, and I think it's a very underrated thing. If you just rage quit and you just leave whenever something goes wrong, then it's going to be really, really hard for you to develop that consistency that you are looking for. So now coming into the sector 3, his red light is still flashing, but he's still got quite good pace and going a little bit out wide here. Not improving that much on the lap so far, but is there going to be an opportunity? So there's really only 2 corners left, so could have got down the inside here, trying to go really outside of this Mercedes, and we actually get a really, really good launch. So think about down the inside there, but I don't think the room is going to be available, so you have to live to fight for another day. Coming across the line, recovered back to P4, and that is often the case of online lobbies for me. So I really hope you actually found this advice useful. Please let me know if you did. Sometimes I just really feel like doing these videos because I feel like even one of these pieces of advice can actually really transform someone's perspective. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Make sure you join my YouTube membership by clicking the join button. www.coachlimitless.com for coaching. Catch you soon. Peace.